This is the Demystifying Mental Toughness podcast, hosted by David Charlton, and you're listening to this podcast to help you build your own mental toughness, so that you can support other people or your clients better. Either way, you will learn more about developing this plastic personality trait that all but guarantees that you will perform better and lead a more prosperous life. Today's episode marks a big landmark in the Demystifying Mental Toughness podcast. 12 months ago, on Tuesday the 9th of June, I was nervously uploading and publishing 4 episodes, which marked the start of the podcast. I was naive at the time, not knowing how the podcast would be received. Yet I was also excited by the conversations that I'd had, and I knew I was going to be going on to share, and some of the pieces of advice that the guests were sharing. Now, 12 months on, we're at episode 66, and my guest is of top quality, an Olympian. And I've been so fortunate to have met many guests of this caliber along the journey so far that I would likely not have met if I hadn't actually gone on to do the podcast. I'm so grateful for that. It's also nice, it's been lovely in fact, to get some positive feedback and some messages, many messages in fact, which have highlighted the difference that the podcast has made to people's lives. Some of the conversations and tips that have been shared have been first class and inspirational. And as I say, that's lovely to hear, and that's what the podcast is all about. Today's guest, Marilyn Okoro, is guaranteed to add some inspiration. She's a top-class athlete, or certainly was until recently, and now an athletepreneur and mentor, and she goes on to share what it takes to compete at such a high level in elite sport. We discuss perfectionism, being yourself, the culture of elite sport and how it can be damaging. We talk about Marilyn's mental health challenges, and then what she's up to now after announcing her retirement from the track a few months ago. Enjoy. So Marilyn, can you tell the listeners a little bit more about your athletics career, certainly the highs that you've experienced and then the levels of commitment that were needed in order to experience those highs?
Absolutely. I mean, where to begin? So I guess, when you think of Olympic athletes, it's a no-brainer. There's a lot of discipline required, a lot of focus, a lot of resilience, emotional resilience, which is a bit like what everyone is having to sort of channel now with the times we're in. But for me, I think I was always quite a disciplined young lady. I grew up in northwest London and with a very strict mother. So, I always strove for excellence. And I think part of it was trying to impress her and not let her down. So I was always someone that whatever I did, I gave 110%, if not more, because that was what was demanded of me, whether it was my academics. I'd come home and say, oh, I've got an A. And she'd be like, okay, well, were you the first in the class? So it was, never enough. But when you take that into the sporting realm, it's, it makes for a very winning mindset. But on the flip side, it can also be a little bit harmful if not, nurtured right and picked up on. But I naturally just love sports and being athletic and pushing myself. I wouldn't say I'm that competitive, which everyone tends to think, what? I love team. My first sport was a game called lacrosse, which was actually a team sport. I loved netball and tennis. So athletics is quite a lonely sport for me because it's just me when I get on that start line, and you go from having the training camps and the training group to, okay, zone in from the crowd to the other 7 girls. And then it's just me, it's showtime, let's do this. But definitely impacted, my nerves and anxiety on race day. But also I always used to dig deep and think, okay, right, how far can I go? How fast can I run today? And there was just this deep down fuel that I just wanted to, risk it all. But incredible amounts of dedication, incredible sacrifices. But ultimately, it's our choice, and we're all just running for that prize, which I thought was medals, but I've learned, and we'll probably delve into, was far more than that. And I'm probably still on that race, just in a different context now.
Yeah, I suppose you've touched on what perfectionism maybe there, where That striving for excellence and winning. Can you actually try to be too perfect?
Oh, perfect doesn't exist, and I think sport teaches you that, because I know every time I ran a PB, I always found something that I could have done better. Or athletes always come off the track and say, oh my gosh, that felt so easy. Like we were expecting this mammoth fight, right? Because that's what training is, and that's what the journey's been. It's like grind, 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 and then you go and run your race, and you run 2 seconds quicker than you've ever run before. Sometimes in my cases, 7 seconds quicker. And then you think, oh, I didn't even do that though, but I didn't do that. So, is there that perfect race? No, I think it's a perfect storm, maybe. And it's just, I try not to use the word perfect. It is definitely what, from, I guess, the age of 10 to 20 even, I was like, I'm just trying to get it perfect. But what I have learned, as a 36-year-old, is that perfect doesn't exist. It's about that opportunity, meeting the preparation, and timing, and there's an element of it that we just can't control, which once we kind of find peace with that, the chips will fall where they may, and it's either your day or it's not. And it's just back to the drawing board and see how we can come back fighting stronger if it happens to not be your day.
I like that. There's a couple of things in there, again, where you mention about that perfection doesn't exist, because, especially when you're younger, you can be a little bit skewed, can't you, in your thinking around that. And then the finding peace with it, that's going to allow you just to fully express yourself and go out there fearlessly.
Absolutely. I think because I was this sort of maverick type athlete in British athletics and not really fitting the mold of what they knew as 800 meter running in the UK for so long, I had to realize that actually I was delivering, but I'm not the perfect 800 meter runner that, everyone's talking about. I don't do this yet. I am, top of the nation. I am, number 4 in the world. So I'm doing something right. It's just in my own way and on my own terms as much as possible. But there is that element to, I can only control the controllables. We hear that all the time. And so it was understanding what was within your control, what was in your toolkit, your kit bag even, and running with that and strengthening that and focusing there, because that was my best possible shot of delivering the performance that I was, I'd practiced so hard for.
You mentioned earlier about like sacrifices along the way. Do you want to expand on that?
Yeah, I think, everyone's saying, well, you must give up such a lot. So it's not like I want to say, oh my God, life was just so hard. And, a lot of it was by choice. I think to be an athlete, you have to be so super focused. You just are. It just draws you in. And all the decisions you make are for the betterment of your sport and your performance. And so, I look back now and I miss so many weddings and birthdays, but it was a no-brainer. It's like, sorry, people would actually invite me to things and like, are you racing? That would be the sort of preceding line. And if you're around, and the people that, really supported my journey and supported me unconditionally, just understood that. Sometimes they wouldn't hear from me for, weeks, months. And it was like when we did catch up again, it'd be just like yesterday. But then there were some people that really didn't understand that and would make you feel quite guilty. There's a lot. For me personally, I chose, not to have children whilst I'm competing. And it actually has impacted, having a relationship and getting married. I'm 3 times engaged, but a lot of that was to do with times and the seasons I was in and just being super focused and trying to chase that medal. So now when I'm at this stage of retirement and thinking, okay, so I guess I'm closer to 40 than I've ever been. And am I ever going to get married? Am I ever going to have my own family? But again, I'm comfortable with who I am, where I'm at. And just, I have no regrets. I always used to hear people say, oh, if I had my time over, I'd do exactly the same. And for a long time, I had this resentment, which was holding me from actually retiring. And I was just going, I can not do that. My kids are not doing that. But actually now I've made peace with everything. I'm just like, I actually would do everything all over again because, the things are in my power to do again, because that's what's led me to this state, this person, and essentially what the season I'm going into next.
Gets back to like controlling the controllables in some ways, isn't it? You can't alter what's gone on in the past.
That's it. Yeah, we can't go back in the past. We can't change it. All we can do is accept and process in order to move forward, because essentially when you keep dwelling on the past, that's where you get stuck. And no one gets anywhere very quickly when they're always looking backwards.
Yeah, likewise, if you think too far ahead, you get yourself nicely overwhelmed. So there's something in that, stay in the present moment.
Absolutely. And like I am very used to anxiety and thinking ahead, what's going to happen? Am I going to, what's going to happen in crossing the line, and am I going to execute this race? And so I was very used to those feelings of, manic and just this relentless like wheel going round and trying to keep up with myself and my thoughts. And when I was super fit and, and generally in a good space and not too bogged down by stuff, I was handling it. But then, it would catch up with me sometimes, and that would probably manifest in a disastrous race. Like, what was I thinking going through in world record pace at 400? But when I was, facing the depression, I guess, which is looking back, and that was really foreign to me because it kept me so stuck, and I didn't do the things I wanted to do, and I wasn't wanting to be social, I wasn't wanting to go outside. So that was really weird to me because it was complete contrast to who I normally am. But I found I was really lamenting over things that were not in my control and things that had happened. But once I kind of got the support to understand that, and just allow it to just be in the past, let's move forward, and then I was able to kind of let go, and just be and have that self-awareness to sort of make sure, okay, I can guard myself from this happening again, which was major in my decision to retire.
You mentioned there about support. What sort of support did you receive there?
So initially, all athletes were just used to just, muscle through that whole kind of grind it out. This is part of the journey. I'm very aware of the language we use now as a culture, and some of them just did not really make sense and were not kind. Are not, because athletes still saying things like that to themselves, like stay hungry. No, we don't. We want to eat, actually. But when I arrived, so I've had such a nomadic lifestyle, and I'm definitely someone who thrives off community and relationship, and having good people around me. And I came back from America in 2018 or 2017, actually. And, it was just trying to re-establish those connections, but I wasn't rooted anywhere. I'd spent 5 years over there, so I didn't realize how much of my life had shifted over there. And then now I was coming back. And again, I still didn't have any roots anywhere. So when I met Jenny Meadows randomly at a school visit, just that kind of, I haven't seen you for ages, what are you doing now? And I still looked like I was running. Well, I was trying to, but with no hamstrings. She just extended that, come up to Wigan and visit the group and meet Trevor. And if you like it, let's, support you to Tokyo. So that initial kind of, wow, this is like someone I just competed against for so long. And she never really was that forthcoming on the track. We definitely respected each other. We definitely got along. But, we hadn't seen each other for a long time as well. And so I'd seen her trying to come back and retire gracefully. And then just her extending that support was major. So I came to Wigan and basically never left. But, in my head at the time, it was to come and smash training and get to Tokyo and be like, I told you so. But that was the fuel. That's what got me here. But it was not what was going to sustain me. The community I found at the training group was very different. They didn't have any elite athletes at the time. And it was just loads of really young kids and their parents. And I was just like, what are you all doing here? My mum's never been to training, and I think she's probably seen me run once live. So it was very weird to me, but they were very nurturing. And, obviously these are their kids. So they were going to, I just found it really like, just go home, pick your kids up later. I wasn't used to it. But as I got to know them, most of them became my friends because I was actually closer to their age. And we had a pain nurse who just noticed, I guess, some of the symptoms I was having or complaining about, that chronic, constant pain that was just insatiable. So she was actually doing a needling course and invited me to have some acupuncture. And I was like, yeah, I'll jump at that, obviously. Just massage nothing was working really, and I just felt like I was having restless nights, but I just thought I was injured, as you do. Everything's just an injury. My hamstring's torn, or it's just healing. I'll get over it. But her husband's also a GP. And I remember one Sunday I was over at theirs and I was just talking, and he was just saying, between me and you and confidentially, I would just say you've had a lot of shifts and changes and fluxes, and I'd look deeper at these symptoms if you were in my clinic, and you sound like obviously with a lack of motivation and just low mood, and no longer I didn't really seem that passionate. Like, they hadn't known me very long, but they just felt like my spark was missing, and that's what I was feeling. So to kind of hear it and see that people that essentially were strangers like 3 months ago can see this change in me, something must be wrong. So he advised me to go and see my GP, which I did. And I was very conscious of okay, I know I'm going to go in there. They're either going to say you're fine or take some pills. So it was nice to have him as a backup and to cross-check things with. So I did do that. They offered me the online training therapy you could do, which I did, but I knew I wanted something a bit more substantial. I definitely needed some counselling and, even probably more so, kind of deeper therapy as well. But the decision to go, I was offered a course of sertraline, which I started, but it was really hard because culturally it was like, oh my gosh, one, am I just being weak? Why can't I shake this off? In Black culture, antidepressants are not really seen. They're a bit of a stigma as well. Why don't you just go and pray and pray it away? And when I had some of my peers, especially from church, saying things like, "Oh, so you're just going to turn to drugs?" But I had a really good counsellor who was also a parent in the group, who would take me out to lunch and we would just chat. And she was just saying, if a physio told you that you needed to take this Celebrex to take down this inflammation, you wouldn't think twice. And you wouldn't be listening to anyone else. So you need to do what you need to do for you. And, that was, how I started, because I just wanted to get productive again. I just wanted to enjoy things around me. I just was so numb to everything. So that's kind of how it started. It wasn't a very easy trajectory. I think I started and stopped quite a bit, because I needed to understand that it was actually working for me. Because I think when I first started, I did the loading period and then I went to South Africa and I was in the sun and I was just like, oh, where Potchefstroom is one of my favorite places to be. I was like, I don't need these things. I'm happy. Take your happy pills back. And then as soon as I came back to my flat on my own, and this was before my amazing puppy, Bentley, just straight back to those same feelings and habits. And okay, let's start again. But yeah, it's just, about doing things that work for you. And I was going through it. So that's what worked for me.
This is a short advertisement introducing the sponsor for the show, Chimera Sport, who produce a range of sportswear and equipment to help enhance performance and recovery, reducing injury occurrences. And as someone who has had long-standing back issues, I've personally tested some of the garments and I've been more than happy with them. You'll also find that the infrared sportswear has been clinically tested too, so it's great for fitness enthusiasts who want to push harder, go further, and recover quicker. More details can be found on the product section of our website and in the show notes. Yeah, and you've mentioned there about, I suppose, the power of talking there, where you've had some counselling as well, and the power of community, being around people. You found those two things very helpful.
Absolutely, 100%. I think, talk about one of my favorite things to do is just to be around good company and just laugh. I love to laugh. So it's essential. Communication was something that was very difficult for me in my childhood. I wasn't always given permission to speak or invited to speak, or, and then in professional sport, I felt like a lot of the time my voice, as in my what I needed and what I wanted to express, was often dismissed or muted. And so it's funny that I want to, traverse into the world of public speaking, because I feel like communication is so important and it's so key. And I think it's one of the most, I remember whenever I was having trouble with someone, it was because we weren't speaking, but they're not going to speak to me and I'm not going to speak to you. So it's never going to get resolved. So yeah, communication is very powerful, as is community.
Yeah. When I think about mental toughness, which obviously this podcast is called Demystifying Mental Toughness, one of the big things is being comfortable in your own skin. And it sounds like if you're not in that place now, you're certainly not far away from that. But the cultures in high performance sport, that don't necessarily allow you to be comfortable in your own skin. Would you say that's true?
Yeah, so I love that we're touching on this, because I've literally just done a campaign with Canty Beauty on my skin love story. So it's it's literally talking about, that they launched the new skincare range, and I was so happy to be as an athlete in that space, because quite often we don't really get invited to all the beauty spaces unless you're like in the top 1%. So I jumped on that, but I did think back to, just feeling so like an imposter in my own arena. Like, running for me was supposed to be my freedom. And then once I got to elite level, it was very stifling, very regimented. And you either fitted in the box or you didn't. And I didn't. And so initially you're trying to make space and create space and be heard. And then there's only so many knocks you can take. And then for the sake of your running, you just almost think, okay, well, forget that. I'm just going to do this, and to hell with what anyone thinks. But there's consequences, because essentially you're one person on your own, and you can't take on the system on your own. And I think that was my knee-jerk reaction to going to America. But I think all the things I've encountered and experienced have put me in a really good place, because now I do know that my thoughts, feelings, and my experiences and realities are valid. But not only that, when I then joined with other athletes and heard the same stories, but in, different contexts and the same themes, I was like, okay, I wasn't wrong. This is an actual problem. And it's important. The only way you're going to navigate this jungle is by knowing who you are and what you stand for and what you're willing to, put yourself through and put your name to. And so I'm very proud of myself for always sticking to my values, and integrity, honesty, respect, and like some key values of mine. And, respecting others, but respecting myself as well. And I think with the industry of sport, you can often be put in scenarios where you're pressurized and pigeonholed and, pushed backed up against the wall. And I understand why athletes sometimes make those decisions that everyone can turn around and say, oh my God, how could you take those drugs, or how could you do this? But they don't often understand like the pressure that you're under to perform.
I'd imagine as well you'll have the financial pressures of funding and amongst all of that.
Absolutely. That was the main thing. If I could pull out anything from my journey that I struggled with most, it was being able to fund my sport. Essentially, that is why I'm no longer running, because I just decided enough was enough, and living a lifestyle that was below what I feel like I deserve. Like I just couldn't keep up. I felt like if I was going to go to Tokyo, I needed to be somewhere, where all the other elite athletes were, but I couldn't afford to jump on a plane and go to Dubai. I couldn't afford to go to California, because I'd, spent all my savings. I've been self-funded since 2012, going on this big trip to America and, sacrificing. But it was bold. I took those risks, and, I've learned a lot from it. But I have been building this network of amazing people, and that's what I feel like I'm thriving off now. But there's immense pressure in so many ways, that's just on top of the immense pressure you put on yourself as an individual, and a lot of athletes, I definitely am fueled by this. Like, if you tell me that I can't do something, I want to prove to you that I can. Or if I mess up, I want to rectify it. I've often had world championships. My kind of pattern is like, if I leave the 800 a bit early, then I need to come back and prove myself in 4x4. So that's always kind of my mentality. And I don't know if you can tell me what that is about, but I've always been that kind of way. And so you're already harboring like this incredible pressure pot, and then you're getting added to it. And that's kind of essentially what led to my burnout, I would say, is because I just literally burnt myself into the ground, ran into the ground. So yeah.
Just thinking about like where you are now, and obviously you've transitioned out of the sport. I mean, it's clear to see that from your thoughts, the feelings that you've experienced, and obviously the various different experiences there. You're in a really valuable position now, aren't you, to be able to mentor and support other athletes, which I know you're really keen on.
Absolutely. Mentoring is something that, you naturally gravitate towards. You're a role model. And whether you like it or not, someone's always watching and looking up to you, as I was doing, with many of the athletes when I was coming through, and not just athletes, people around me. And I think now I'm looking for those role models, or looking towards those role models in other industries that I'm looking to sort of connect with, and just understanding like how they navigated these spaces and just learning from each other. But yeah, I just feel like there was a reason I went through everything I went through. And it would be an absolute travesty to not give back. I think why I became a mentor is because I want to be the mentor that I wish I had at certain points in my career. Not to say I never had any mentors. I had some incredible ones. Tasha Danvers, who I'm still, working very closely with now, she was always someone I thought gave me the real, she didn't ever scare me, but she's like, look, this is the reality of it. She's also, her ability in Beijing to just deliver in spite of everything going on around her. And I really resonated with that, because I feel like often my performance on the track was in spite of a lot of crazy stuff going on off the track. So I really and that's what my book is about, just the people that are able to channel that mindset to keep it together and deliver, until their job is done. I'm fascinated with that. But so my plan going forward is to be that. I guess we don't really have this in sport, really. There's a lot of people saying they're doing it, but, someone that is really going to take an athlete through the potential, everything they could expect, like knowledge is power, right? So I'd love it to be, a course that athletes come on and really learn about themselves and, make sure they're as robust as possible entering the jungle that is elite sporting world. And it's not just track and field, it's sport. I've learned that it is the culture of sport. So on the one hand, I'm trying to, the activist in me is trying to revolutionize it and scream about all the important stuff and getting athletes funding and, stomping out abuse and things like that. Essentially, I just want athletes to thrive and be on their terms. Everything that I am now doing, I'm just not running literally around a track, running through LinkedIn.
No, it's great. I look forward to seeing where this all takes you in the next year or two.
Yeah, it's exciting. And you know what? I think everyone, when you're retiring, because it is ring, is wondering, what am I going to do next that's going to fulfill me the way sport has and give me that same sense of purpose? And, I feel very blessed to be in this position that I have found that. And it's something that definitely is, it's keeping me awake, but in a good way. But I'm also able to be like, hey, it's not going to be, an overnight thing. It's a marathon. It's the only time I will associate my name with a marathon. But it's legacy, it's legacy stuff. And, it's just about, I'm loving the people I get to meet on the journey, like your good self, and just realizing that, there's some good people out there. I might have felt a bit suffocated for a while, but I made it out, and there's actually people that care about humanity and, Marilyn, as opposed to, the double Olympian, which I'm very proud of, but often it can get caught up and lost. And I think a lot of the struggle in that transition phase is your identity when you're not doing your sport. But I love my identity. I haven't ran since December 31st, but I love my identity now, and I'm embracing all the things that come with it, because there's some uncomfortable bits. And also, especially a key part of the program that I'm working on will be literally in that midst, I'm capturing everything that I'm going through. And some things I just was like, oh my God, this is really weird. Why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? I would never have done this as an athlete. And it's like, well, you're not an athlete anymore, but that's okay.
Yeah, I suppose the trick's going to be not getting too far ahead of yourself, like we mentioned before, isn't it? Because I know myself, when I had a change of career in my 30s, it is very, very overwhelming and daunting at times.
Oh, absolutely. And it was for me, and this is the thing, it's transitions. I just think, it's so relatable everywhere. And I just think the boulder just moved and the floodgates opened, and I was just like, oh my God, especially when you've been in that kind of, I guess, scarcity mindset for so long, because that's what I had been, just, content with crumbs, I say. You just want to grab everything. I was like, hang on a minute. I actually didn't have the energy to, so that kind of stopped me a bit, because I'm still really recovering from a lot of burnout. And And I think there's something about when you finally stop, everything just hits you like a ton of bricks and more. Like the Great Wall of China fell on me. But I'm just super mindful of, like I said, respecting myself and respecting my body and what I have put it through for the last 16 years or more. So.
Yeah, no, it is true. So yeah, who's been the biggest influence on your athletics career and why?
Great question. So I feel like it changes at different stages of your career. Definitely, a defining moment for me in my life was going to my first boarding school at age 10. And that's where I met definitely the most influential person, because he definitely started all of this, the catalyst to Olympic dreaming, I say. He sowed that seed, and that was my first coach, George Harrison, not the Beatle. Incredible, father figure really to me. And, he saw that I had talent, but he also saw that I lacked access and opportunities. So he sought to create that for me, made sure I could stay in the sport, made sure I enjoyed it, didn't put too much pressure on me, and just allowed me to naturally become, the athlete that I can. I never really specialized until I'd say my last year at university. I played, different sports, which he never complained about. He always encouraged it, in fact. So George definitely was a massive, massive influence. But then in terms of, kind of role models and inspirations, I always talk about Serena Williams, because she's someone I could identify with. I see myself in her. She stands for a lot of the things that I stand for. And, she is an incredible athlete, like fierce. She owns her body and herself. And she's also, about others and nurturing others and bringing the younger generation through. She's an incredible mom and, and wife. And businesswoman. So a lot of the things that I'm striving to achieve, I see that, she's done that. So, but also I kind of just really love the way she just owned who she was in the tennis world, and she didn't necessarily fit everybody's, cup of tea, and she didn't care. She just had her goals. She had her tribe. I loved that. I also love Venus. But there was just something about Serena's fire that I identify with. So they're probably my two key people that influenced me.
Yeah, it's amazing when you look at Serena's career, some of the lows and difficulties she's had and overcome. And yeah, people are often so blind to that, aren't they, about the ups and downs and the fact that athletes are human beings after all.
Yes, absolutely. We are definitely humans first, and it's overlooked because you're just out there doing incredible stuff. And someone like Serena just kept delivering and delivering and delivering, and people come to expect that and get shocked when you can't. And I guess when I'm relating that to non-athletes, it's the people that are always giving and giving and giving, and people get used to that. So it's about really putting those boundaries in place, protecting yourself, and making sure that you're looking after number one before you can, because if you don't fill up your cup, you've got nothing to support others with. So she is definitely a big hero of mine.
Yes, certainly hugely inspiring she is. So from our conversation, which incidentally has been fascinating, what are the three key takeaways that you can pass on to the listeners?
So I would definitely say that the culture of sport is not always what we think. There's a lot of, I guess, detaching of stigmas that we need to do, and it's going to take us having more conversations like this, listening to more athletes. So definitely detaching those stigmas, such as mental health and inequality, and that's the mission I'm on. I would also say it's important to stay in the moment, and enjoy those moments, because they can't, they're very easy. When you're thinking too far ahead or you're stuck in the past, you forget to enjoy the present. And actually there's a lot in that, being present and grounding and finding peace, that will help you get to where you're trying to go. And surround yourself with great people, just kind, supportive, awesome people, because that is what will keep you going and sustain you on this journey called life.
It's a lovely way to end that. I like that. And we met through the Sports Business Club. Do you want to just tell the listeners a little bit about that and your role there?
Yes, all my new friends. So, I embarked on this journey to kind of, essentially not be a poor athlete anymore. And I thought, okay, well, I'm passionate about sport and the business of sport, and I want to do something in that realm. And what I have done the last 18 months is network like mad, knowing or not. And suddenly I just, I'm finding the synergies between sport and business. And so David just stumbled across my profile and what I was doing, and we had a conversation, and it was just crazy, the energy that just bounced through the screen. So he told me about the Sports Business Club, and I was just like, well, it's a bit scary, but yeah, I'm on board. I'd love to be an ambassador, and I just love all the concepts, and it's like this two-way all the time, like, support going both ways. And so I'm all about that. I'm all about community and networking. I always say your network is your net worth. And as an athlete, I think you have this incredible network. You don't even realize it. And so that's what I'm definitely realizing now and really benefiting of. And I just love the way, we were on a call yesterday with, all sorts of different businesses, and yet we were unified by sport. And I think that's the power of sport. So yeah, very excited to do all that I'm going to do with that. I've already connected with GB Active, who I met through that, Patrick, and we've got great plans to sort of go into the community and host boot camps, but also in return, kind of, he's very happy to support my mission to support athletes. So it's an incredible network to be a part of, and I love the charity aspect of whatever we incur, we're going to give a percentage of that back to our chosen charities. And it's just an incredible network of empowerment, as well as giving and supporting humanity, as it were.
Yeah, no doubt. And obviously with COVID and the current situation, there's such a high need for that support for grassroots sport as well, which is a big feature of the Sports Business Club.
Absolutely. And it's, we're just so conscious of this return or bouncing back from, the times we're in. But, we don't, it's, some things are not going to go back to how they were. And, we've seen a lot of things of adjusting very nicely to a new normal. But, people are going to need a helping hand. And it's so great that, we're going to be there to support people where they need.
Yeah, without doubt. And so whereabouts can the listeners find you then, if anybody wants to get in touch with you and have a conversation, if they've enjoyed this and been inspired by you?
Yes, absolutely. So I am on Instagram. I'm on everything. But my Instagram handles are the Champion You Coach. So Champion You Coach. Also the girl _Okoro. Those are me. But also if you put Marilyn Okoro, I should pop up on Twitter and also LinkedIn.
Fantastic. Well, I'll put those in the show notes and
amazing.
See some other bits of information there.
Yes.
And yeah, I hope people get in touch with you and and reach out.
Absolutely. I'm really inviting any conversations around transition and, empowering and, supporting the next generation. So if anyone has any questions or would like to be interviewed by me, just definitely slide on into those DMs.
Brilliant. Well, I appreciate your time, Marilyn. It's been
Thank you so much, David.
I loved Marilyn's enthusiasm and openness and honesty, and really wish her well in a new career. Clearly, her passion and mental toughness to handle pressures and setbacks are going to stand her in good stead. She eloquently talked about different pressures that a top athlete faces, highlighting the need to be able to remain focused and not get distracted by the noise or politics. Many athletes, as we know, aren't able to do this, which goes on to really highlight and show the importance of sports psychology and the development of mental toughness and resilience. Certainly, if you're going to get the most from your talent, that is. And on this note, you may want to download the Focused Athlete Checklist. It's a free resource that I created a few months ago, and it's available on our website, sport-focus.com. sport-excellence.co.uk/freebies. The link's also in the show notes, and alongside the checklist, you're going to receive a few other helpful resources to keep you on track, or if you're a coach, to support your athletes. Have a great week ahead. If you enjoyed this episode of the Demystifying Mental Toughness podcast with David Charlton, do check out my website, sport-excellence.co.uk, and my online sport psychology resources. The Sport-Excellence website has essential resources for anyone looking to build their own mental toughness or the mental toughness of their athletes or teams, or if you want to achieve peak performance more often or optimal functioning. The Sport Excellence website has everything you need to keep moving forward and thrive. So go on, head over to sport-excellence.co.uk to find out more.